Hi, good morning and good afternoon and good evening or whatever time of day it is for you children. It is good to be back with you again this week. And boy, have we had some snow this week, huh? It is out there, it's piled, it's deep. You probably played in it and had a great time. Maybe you went sledding. I went sledding with my grandchildren and I ate the next day. That's not as easy as it used to be, but we did have a good amount of snow and it was cold. One of the things that I noticed was if you didn't have gloves, it was bad. And that's kind of the story that we're talking about, is Treasures in the Snow. It's a story of a girl in Switzerland many, many years ago when didn't have cars necessarily. They had to go by sled in the wintertime or sleigh to get from place to place or to walk. And so you need warm gloves, and I'm telling you why that is the case here in a moment. I've got some gloves I brought along here. These are some of the best gloves that you'd ever want to see in the world. They are premium, and I still use these gloves. But you know, when I went sledding, I wouldn't use these gloves. Do you know why? Because they get wet, and they get cold, and they don't keep your hands warm. They get really, really cold. So they can be all right when I go down to the barn, take care of the horses, as long as I'm not getting my hands too wet. Now, I have this pair. This is a better pair than that pair for sure, because these get wet and then my hands get cold. These are insulated gloves, so that they keep my hands warm in there. But they have a drawback too. They're not waterproof. They hold out the water some, they don't hold it out completely. And so if I'm sledding, sometimes I've gone sledding with these gloves. They'll last for a while, a lot longer than these will. But after a while my hands get cold and I have to go inside. Now the third pair I got here are even better. These are ones that are designed for going with a ski. And I've used these when I've gone skiing with my kids. They have a mat right there, and they are thick. Oh boy, are they warm, and they're waterproof too. That's the important thing. So, because you know, sometimes when I'm skiing, I fall down. Yeah. I haven't never gotten hurt. My pride has, but I haven't gotten hurt. But these gloves keep you really, really warm. But, you know, in spite of the fact that these are good gloves and I like them for when I'm outdoors sledding or whatever, I've got one more pair I'm going to show you next week. And I'm going to tell you why that's an even better pair than all of these. And we'll find that out next week. Now, as we're starting today, I want to check with you and see if you recognize what I've got here. Do you recognize what that is? It's a Christmas cookie. It's a sugar cookie. But do you know, is it in the shape of a snowman? No, it's not a snowman. How about, is it in the shape of a Christmas tree? Nope, not a Christmas tree. How about a bell? A bell. Shape of a bell? Nope, not a bell. But it sounds a little bit like bell. Begins like bell. Bell begins with a B and an E. Can you think of something that begins with a B and an E? Are you ready for it, are you? A-R comes after it, B-E-A-R. It's a bear. Now you may have remembered that I was telling you a couple weeks ago that on Christmas Eve, when the kids in Switzerland go to church on Christmas Eve, they get a bear. You probably get maybe a box of candy or some cookies or some, not popsicles, on some candy canes. But they get a bear. So I made a bear just so that you would be able to see how talented I am with that. And I hope you believe it's a bear, because that's what it's supposed to be. And we're going to talk a little bit more about what happened to Annette. You remember Annette? She awakened on Christmas morn. It was cold. It was hard to get out from under those covers, but she got out from under those covers, went downstairs thinking that she needed to get breakfast ready and the fire going and all that. And there on the floor was her dad and her little brother. He was 5 years old. And she had helped take care of him because his mother and her mother had died when Danny was born. So she had to help take care. Now, another person had come to help them too as they took care of Danny. And that person, get the page turned right here, was Grandma. And Grandma, she had rheumatism. I don't know what rheumatism is. Somebody told me it was like arthritis. And I guess it could be like arthritis. I don't know. But she had trouble getting around, so Annette would kind of take charge of the kitchen and fix breakfast. And she got coffee ready for Grandma, because Grandma liked a cup of coffee early in the morning. Well, Annette had sat around and was remembering the time when Danny was just a baby. And she had cared for him. And she really took very seriously the responsibility of helping to raise Danny. And so she had done that, and now it was another time Danny was older. Now, they had a neighbor. I told you a little bit about Lucien, because Lucien, he didn't lose his mother, but he lost his father. And so he was somewhat like Annette. He had to stay at home a lot. He couldn't go out and play with the kids much because he had chores to do, and he didn't like it. He resented it. Annette didn't resent it so much. She was happy to take care of Danny and do things around the kitchen, but it did mean that she didn't get to go sledding, perhaps for fun, as much as she liked. Now, there's Lucien on a sled, and he's getting ready to go down the hill, because at the bottom of the hill, well, it's not really, it's kind of got to do some turns and roads that join and stuff, but it's a bit of a ride down. Now, coming home, you got to walk up the hill, but going to school, he could ride his sled. So he was all bundled up. He's got his gloves on. He's got his hands tucked in to keep him warm, and he's on the sled, and he's ready to go, and he takes off down the hill. And he's picking up speed and going right along, and he's thinking about what's happening. Well, he's not thinking about what's happening. That's the problem. As he's going down that road, I put things on here so I could turn these pages easier. And there at the crossroads is Annette, and he crashes right into her. She's on her sled, sledding down towards school as well. And Lucien stops to help her. He doesn't just go on. He stops to help her. But she says, "You big old donkey, get away from me." You know, and he's offered to help her. And she says, "I don't want your help." See, she's not a happy person. So Lucien gets on a sled and goes on down to school. And Annette comes down, she comes out, but when she comes in, she is all wet. Oh my goodness, she's cold, her hands are cold, and the teacher says, "What happened to you?" And Annette says, "Lucien hit my sled and knocked me out of it into the snow, and then he wouldn't help me, he just ran out." Whoa, that wasn't what happened. But that's how she told it. She wasn't telling the truth. Remember a few weeks ago we talked about the 10 Commandments, and one of them was, "You shall tell no lies." She was telling lies because she was angry. And it wasn't just that she was hurt. She was angry. She didn't like Lucien. And so she's kind of being a talebearer. She's not even being a tattletale because she's not telling it the way it was. She's telling it the way it wasn't. And the teacher went over and punished Lucien for doing that. And Lucien, he was angry now too, but he couldn't say anything in school. But he knew that Annette had lied and hadn't told the truth about what had happened, and that he had offered to help her, and she had told him to go away. That hurt Lucien's feelings. So, that next day, as they were going back home, Lucien saw Danny, Annette's brother. And look what he had built. Isn't that a nice one? Oh boy, that is a beautiful, beautiful snowman. And he's got the carrot in the nose and the coal for the eyes. I'm not sure what he used for the mouth, maybe a twig. I remember making snowmen and putting noses. We didn't have carrots to use, but we'd use another piece of coal to make their nose, and then sometimes some small stones to go around to be their mouth and their big eyes. And then we put our old scarf around their neck and our old skull cap on so they'd look at it. Well, Danny had built this beautiful snowman, and he wanted to go tell Annette what he had done. And so Lucian came up and he's looking there, and Danny said, "Do you like my snowman?" And Lucian said, "It's stupid looking." See, he was still angry with Annette. And Danny didn't know anything about it, but Lucian was angry. And he wanted to get back at Annette. And so Danny's standing there saying, "Do you like my snowman?" And Lucian pulls back his foot. And you know what he does? I'll tell you next week. Aha, how about that? Yeah, sometimes we get angry, don't we? And sometimes there may be a good reason for us to get angry. But a lot of times it's not a good reason. We're just mad, we're jealous, we're unhappy, and so we don't want anybody else to be happy. And that kind of happened to both Annette, and it happened to Lucian, and it can happen to us too. Well, next week we'll find out what happens. Now, there's a song I want to teach you over this time, and you may have learned it already. It's called "Children, Go Where I Send You." And then it has different verses. Now, the first verse says, "I'm going to send you one by one." And then it says, "One is for the little bitty baby born on Christmas morn." You know who that baby was that was born on Christmas morn? Yeah, it's Jesus. This song is about Jesus. "Children, go where I send thee. How shall I send thee? I'm going to send thee one by one. One for the little bitty baby who's born on Christmas morn." Now, two says, "I'm going to send you by two." Who could be the two? Joseph and Mary. Mary was his mother, Joseph was his earthly dad. So that's 2 by 2. "Children, go where I send thee. How shall I send thee? I'm going to send thee 2 by 2. 2 for Joseph and Mary, 1 for the little bitty baby who's born on Christmas morn." Then we come to 3. Now, what could we sing about 3? Let's see. We've got to be really wise to think about 3. We've got to think about 3. It's a gift to be able to think about 3. Can you think about 3 and the Christmas story? The wise men. The 3 wise men. Or particularly the 3 gifts. And this song talks about the 3 gifts. Gifts of the wise. "Children, go where I send thee. How shall I send thee? I'm going to send thee 3 by 3. 3 for the gifts of the wise. 2 for Joseph and Mary. 1 for the little bitty baby who's born on Christmas morn." Then we're going to go to 4. And that's as far as I'm going this week. Next week we'll go all the way to 7. But 4 is for the gospel core. Now, only 2 of the Gospels talk about the birth of Jesus, the baby Jesus. That's Matthew and also Luke. But there's 2 others in the Gospel core. That is in the group of the Gospel writers. There's Mark and there's John. So Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John are the gospel core. Those are the books that help us to know about Jesus. All right? Here we go. 4. "Children, go where I send thee. How shall I send thee? I'm going to send thee 4 by 4. 4 for the 4 of the gospel core. 3 for the gifts brought by the wise. 2 for Joseph and Mary. 1 for the little baby who's born on Christmas morn." How about that? Isn't that good? Let's have a prayer, and then I'll be back next week, all right? Father, thank you for this day that you've given to us, and for the things that we can learn and celebrate at Christmas time. Help us to be patient and forgiving. Help us not to be angry and bitter. Help us to be willing to share, as Jesus even taught us to share. In his name we pray. Amen. Bye-bye, boys and girls.